7 o'clock-ish, almost. Welcome to Real Life Cooking. Just getting my technologies together. Ow. Live. Oh, maybe I should, oops.
Are you doing it?
Turn it the other way.
Are you doing it?
Yeah, it's on.
I need wax.
Hey guys. Hello, Instagram. Welcome to Real Life Cooking with Chefleen. Is anyone here? Am I talking to myself? Oh, Monique, welcome. Hello, Monique. Anyone cooking along today? Anyone? Today we are making, if I can get this together. Today we're taking a trip to New Orleans and we are making Etouffe. I've said this word so many times this week that I'm probably going to mess it up several times. You know when you say a word a lot, then you just like say it doesn't sound right anymore. So Etouffe, which literally means to smother. And now Etouffe can be made in a lot of different ways. Oh, let me actually adjust this camera. You guys are not going to be able to see. There we go. Now you can see my cutting board. Welcome, Johanna. I know you're cooking along at home and doing laundry at the same time.
Johanna likes your face.
But anyway, yes, welcome. It is 7 o'clock. Welcome to Real Life Cooking with Chefleen, where I make a meal stuck. We have a few special guests here today. As usual, we have our technological genius guru, TT Lyle, on the ones and twos, typing back, answering your questions, letting me know that you're here. And we also have her newly acquired fiance. Congratulations to them. And we have my good friend Yaz here as well because she just wanted to come eat dinner. Apparently it's turning to a party here on Sunday nights. But yes, Real Life Cooking is where I make a meal from start to finish that makes sense for your life. There's no TV magic happening. I'm literally doing everything to show you how easy it is to cook at your own house. And I really want to inspire you. And so yeah, let's get started today. We're actually, let's close the windows too. Living in the city, we get to hear all the lovely noises like cars and dogs and people. So yes, today we're taking a trip to New Orleans. I was inspired this week because it was my 1-year anniversary with my boyfriend. We met in New Orleans, so we went to a New Orleans restaurant here in the city. And after tasting the food, I was like, I can make this way better. So we're gonna make some shrimp etouffee today, or etouffee. See, I told you I was gonna say it wrong. And we're also gonna be making dessert for all of those who wanted to eat some dessert. We're gonna be making bananas Foster. Yes, question.
I wanted to eat dessert.
Oh, TT wanted to eat dessert, yes. So we're gonna go ahead and get started with chopping up our vegetables. So for our vegetables, we have some onion, bell pepper, and I left this so big. Look at this celery. Isn't it beautiful?
Yes, huge.
It's like gorgeous, but who would ever want to eat? It's like literally half of my size. Who would ever want to eat this much celery? Celery is not good. Maybe some people like it. But we're going to be using about a stalk or two of this. Well, probably just like one because this is so giant. But we're going to be using 2 stalks of celery. Just put this. I don't even know where to put it. It's like flowers. We'll just go ahead and put it over here. All right. So I'm just going to give all my vegetables a rinse. I told you just a green bell pepper. Don't worry. It's not like a huge deal if you only have green. I'm going to rinse off all my vegetables. And we're going to go ahead and get started by chopping up our onion. Now, if you watched last week, you saw I chopped a shallot and I showed you how to chop it nice and easy. You want to keep this root end intact, the part with the hairs coming out, and you're going to chop off this top part. So we'll just go ahead and chop it. And then I'm going to turn my onion on its flat side and chop it in half again. So see, my onion is staying together because I have the root end intact. Yes, we have a question.
We have a question from the room and Instagram. Is there a difference between green and red peppers?
Yes, there is a difference between green and bell peppers, or green and bell peppers, red and green bell peppers. So red bell peppers are actually the mature version of a green bell pepper. That's why they are more expensive because they take longer to grow. And they actually have more vitamins and antioxidants than your green pepper. They actually taste a lot better too. I honestly do not like green peppers unless they're cooked. But they're a lot cheaper. And in this case, we're doing the Holy Trinity. The New Orleans, they call it the Holy Trinity, which is onion, bell pepper, and celery. Traditionally, there's a thing called mirepoix. I'm just slicing my onion horizontally. I don't think Facebook can see so well. Let me go ahead and move this back just a little. There you go. So I chop my onion horizontally like this. Now I'm gonna turn it towards me and slice my knife through it like this. And then I'm gonna turn it one more time that way, and now go through it one more time, just like this. And I'll just push this to the side and get rid of this. And then I'm gonna do the same thing with the other onion. We're gonna use the whole onion here today because we have a lot of hungry people in my house. So slice it through. So this really helps you cut your onion better because it holds all those pieces together, and then and you get pretty even size. Now, when it comes to crying in onions, I can't really help you. This does help if you have a sharp knife. This onion is pretty strong. I also heard if you hold a piece of bread in your mouth, it kind of absorbs those acids. So we'll just leave that onion to the side while we get started on our bell peppers. I'm going to take the sticker off. That's important, of course. And now bell peppers are kind of like one of those weird vegetables. Oh my gosh, this onion is so strong.
No.
One of those weird vegetables that's hard to cut. I'm going to show you a simple way to do it. We're just going to go ahead and take off the top. I'm only using this red bell pepper because it's been in my fridge for like a week, and I want to get rid of it. So, but the green bell pepper is fine. I'm going to take off this the seeds on the inside. Now I'm going to cut off the other end, and then so I have something that looks like this. I'm just going to slice my knife through there, and now look at this. We have a nice long piece of bell pepper here. And now from here, I'm going to just remove these ribs, and then remove this trash. And then I'm going to just slice my pepper into nice bite-sized pieces. I'm going to make this about the same size as the onion. Bell peppers are a really great thing to keep in your fridge. Just cut them into strips, and you can snack on them all the time. So you can see this is pretty simple. Etouffee just has a fancy name, but it's really, really easy. Now I'm going to pause here because our etouffee, what is at the base of it, is called a roux. And I want to start heating up my oil, so by the time I'm ready to get to my oil, I'll have all my I'll be doing things concurrently. So I'm just going to turn on, I have a big Dutch oven back here. I'm just going to go ahead and remove the water that's in it. And turn on the pan, and I'm going to heat up a half a cup of oil. You're probably like, that's a crazy amount of oil. But a roux is basically equal amounts of fat and flour. So, and the roux is going to make our etouffee nice and smooth and thick. So we want to make sure that we have a half a cup of oil. I realized today I don't have any measuring cups in this house. So we're going to eyeball it. If you don't have measuring cups, you can use just equal amounts of oil and flour. So I'm going to just eyeball it in this ramekin. That looks like about a half of a cup. And I want to get this nice and hot. Now, if you have seen roux recipes before, they'll tell you to put them together and then just keep stirring and stirring, and it takes like 20 minutes. So this is a way to shortcut your roux. You're going to go ahead and just heat up your oil, and then you'll see what happens when we add the flour in. So let me just finish chopping up my vegetables. Now, as I said, red peppers have a lot more nutrients than your green bell peppers. They're a little bit more expensive. Another thing that you want to buy organic because you are eating the skin, it doesn't come off. Although I worked for a family where we peeled the peppers for the child. That was a lot.
What about yellow peppers?
Yellow peppers are somewhere in the middle of the green and the red bell pepper. All right, so I'm not going to use this whole green bell pepper. Now I'm going to have leftover green bell pepper in my fridge.
Or you can snack on it.
No, not. Who snacks on green bell peppers?
Me.
Ew.
Can I have some?
I judge you. Here, come get your green bell pepper. Told you they were just hungry. All
I
right.
have a question.
Question.
Can you substitute corn flour for cornstarch?
No. In this case, you cannot substitute flour for cornstarch. Are you asking for gluten-free options, I'm assuming?
Probably.
No, a roux is butter and flour, or oil and flour, fat and flour. You can, it's not going to be a true Etouffe or gumbo, another dish that uses this as a base. You can use, you can thicken it at the end with cornstarch, like a cornstarch slurry, but it's not going to be like the traditional, like someone in New Orleans will be like, first of all, in New Orleans, they're like, gluten allergy, what's that? Like, you're lying. Who's been to New Orleans? New Orleans has like the best food ever in life. So, these are not just beautiful, they're actually edible. I'm going to turn down this oil because it's heating up a little bit. I can hear it bubbling. These are great in salads. They add like a nice freshness to salads. You could chop them up and use them like parsley as a garnish on something as well. For now, we'll just leave them over there. Now my celery, I'm going to, the biggest mistake I see, I have like hair floating in my face. The biggest mistake I see when people chop things is that they make their job really hard. When you're chopping something, you don't want to ever chop something that's bigger than your knife. You wouldn't want to like cut it down. So you want to make it manageable for you. And we'll just go ahead and cut it in half just like that. And half again. And just cut it into manageable pieces just like that. So see, chopping can be fun. All right, and now I hear our oil. Ooh, there goes my finger. I hear our oil in the back bubbling. If you have a thermometer, you want your oil to be around 385. If you don't, just when your oil is hot, you'll know it'll start smoking. It'll start getting shimmering, visual cue that you're looking for. Your oil will start shimmering. So as you can see, here's our Holy Trinity we have for our etouffee. We have our celery, our bell pepper, and our onion. Now celery is one of those things that people really don't like, unless you're weird. Maybe like, yeah, she likes green bell pepper.
Celery and peanut butter is delicious.
It's also celery and peanut, yes, ants on a log. Do you put raisins on it as well? No, that's where I lost. That's where I lost Titi Bio. But celery, one of the things when you buy like that giant thing of celery that I had back there, you're inevitably going to have leftover celery in your fridge, and you might be wondering what can you do with it. You can do a lot of different things. If you don't like celery, like pieces like this, I suggest getting a mandolin. Where's mandolin? Here we are. Mandolin makes things really small. So you can shave your celery and then it absorbs a lot of the dressing. So what you're really tasting is more of the dressing than your celery. You can also use it for stock if you just freeze it in the freezer, and then whenever you're making chicken soup, you can just throw it in the pot. Also, if you're roasting a chicken, you can set your celery up just like a little roasting rack and put your chicken on top, so celery tastes a lot better with like chicken drippings on it, unless you're vegetarian. And the final thing that I would suggest that you do with your celery is you can actually make celery syrup. So you basically take 1 part water, or 1 part sugar, 2 parts water, and put your celery in there and make a celery syrup, and then you can like use it for gin cocktails, vodka cocktails, impress your friends. And then if you are even lucky enough to have these big garnishes, you put like the garnish on the side, you seem really fancy.
Pretty.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so our oil back here is super shimmering. It's like basically bubbling. And so I'm gonna measure out a cup of flour, or not a cup, half a cup. The same amount of oil as I use, pretty much. Ooh, flour everywhere. And I'm going to take a whisk or wooden spoon, and I'm going to just put my flour inside of the oil. And it's gonna bubble up, don't be afraid. Ah.
Are you doing all of it at the same time, all the flour?
All the flour, yes. All the flour at the same time. And what's gonna happen here, I'm gonna turn up my heat so this can go faster. What's gonna happen here is the flour is gonna turn, because we already had our oil heating up, our flour is going to turn a nice dark nutty color. We're looking for like the color of a peanut. Right now it's like kind of beige. Beige love matters, by the way. We're gonna go ahead and just keep stirring it. So what you wanna do is not burn your flour, but you wanna cook it so it doesn't taste like raw flour. So that's why you're gonna constantly stir. Now, traditionally, like I said, roux will have you add everything into a cold pan, and then you're seriously stuck there like stirring for like 20 minutes. So this really makes the process go a lot faster if you're starting with hot oil. And it's really important that you get the color that you need, that you're looking for here. You don't want to rush your roux because then you're not going to have the flavor. Yes, question.
Does that change the taste if you do it that way?
It just, if we start the oil first. So it's not going to change the taste at all. It just expedites the process. The taste is actually formed here with the flour cooking and the color of the flour. So, like I said, I was reading today on the internet, like, roux can be used in jambalaya, which I don't think is true. Jambalaya is a rice dish that's already thickened by the rice. But roux are used in gumbo and I told you I'm not going to be able to say this word. Etouffee. Thank you, etouffee. Because it's more of like a stewy sauce sort of thing. And gumbos are where you're going to have the super dark roux, like almost near burnt, which is where a lot of people go wrong when they're making gumbo. Because if you burn your roux, then basically you have to start the whole dish over because it's just so, it just doesn't taste good. Yes, question.
Yes, question from Mrs. Bundy Davis. Does the pot matter?
Yes, great question. So when you are making a roux, actually for both dishes that we're making today, you want to be using a heavy pot, like a very weighted pot. Right now I'm using an enameled cast iron. Enameled cast iron is great because it has all the benefits of a cast iron's pot, which like it holds heat really well. It gives even cooking, so our roux will be less likely to burn if we had used like a skinny, like a thin pan. But at the same time, enamel cast iron, you don't have to do any of the like taking care of it like a normal cast iron pot does. Yes, question.
Question from Monica. How does the oil not burn when you leave it bubbling for so long?
The oil, I mean, we didn't leave the oil bubbling for so long. This is not something that you want to start your oil and then go take a bath. That's dangerous. But your oil is not going to burn if like within a few minutes. So I want to bring this to you because so you can see the color and not, hopefully I don't light anything on fire. Woo! This is so dangerous. It's starting to get darker in color. You see that in the back? That's what we're looking for. It's actually almost there. I'm going to do it just a little bit darker. You guys smell it in here?
Yeah.
What's it smell like? Good or bad? It smells like oil, right?
It smells like oil.
Doesn't smell amazingly delicious.
Yes.
Yes, exactly. So why are we using oil instead of butter is a good question that I just came up with myself. Butter burns so much easier than oil. Butter will actually add more flavor, but it's a lot more tricky to make a roux with butter than it is with oil. All right, just maybe a couple more minutes. I have a better idea to show you how. The color is changing. Dripping hot oil. Okay, you can't see it. Can you see it? Can you see it? Well, it's darker. It's darker than me now, almost. So we're gonna add in our vegetables now with the bench scraper. Now at this point, the roux could burn, so we want to do this pretty quickly. And we're gonna put in all of our vegetables. See how easy the bench scraper makes this? Just transferring over everything. And now what we want to do is cook these vegetables with the roux for a couple of minutes, just so the vegetables can start to take on some flavor. I'm going to grab a wooden spoon now and stir. Ooh, this is hot, yeah. So I'm basically coating my vegetables with the roux. And I want to, also at this moment, I want to add in some salt. Where's my real salt? My real salt. Yes, question.
Question from Nicole.
Yes.
What temperature should the oven be on?
The oven isn't on.
I think so.
Yeah.
I'm not using the oven.
No oven today. All on the stovetop. So at this point you want to season your vegetables because you want to build your layers of flavor. And we want to cook these in the roux for a little while because actually vegetables, when you're sauteing them, they gain a lot more flavor. If we were to just add in our stock right now, then it's just going to taste like undercooked vegetables no matter how long we cook it. But like especially onions, like onions have all that sulfur, which is what makes you cry and what makes them smell. But when we cook onions, they actually become sweeter. The sulfur becomes disulfide and slow, low heat will do that. So we definitely don't want to skip this step. A couple of minutes of letting our vegetables just go. Yes, question?
Yes, correction. What level should the
the stovetop be?
on?
So right now my stove is on like a medium high because I'm sitting here watching it. Now this is the part where you could walk away. I hesitate to say you can walk away because cooking is active. If you're cooking, you should be in your kitchen. But you can walk away because this needs to go a few minutes and just keep it on a little lower heat. I have it on a pretty high heat because I'm here constantly stirring. And I'm constantly stirring as I'm not constantly stirring. But I really want these vegetables to get nice and soft. Now, if you are cooking along, I asked you to have a pot of boiling or simmering water. I have that back here simmering away. And we're going to be making the traditional accompaniment for etouffee, which is rice, white rice. Now, people that cook rice, like, you know, there's like very scientific methods, like, oh, stick a finger, like, walk away. But there always ends up being a pot of burnt rice. Growing up, we ate so much rice. I'm like over rice now. But, like, when the house would smell like burnt rice, it was like, and then there would be curse words following after that.
Burnt rice
so
is a delicacy.
Burnt rice is a delicacy.
In Persia.
Oh, in Persia, burnt rice is a delicacy. Also, jollof rice, the toasted on the bottom, or paella, they like toasted rice. But we don't want burnt rice. And I'm going to tell you an easy way to cook rice instead of measuring and checking the weather and all that stuff. We're just going to cook rice just like we cook pasta. So basically, we have a pot of boiling water, and I'm just going to add in my rice. Now, I told you a cup of rice. Use as much rice as you want. This is what's great about this method. You don't have to measure it at all. In general, a cup of rice makes 2 cups. A cup of uncooked rice makes 2 cups of cooked rice. So, like, whoa, there goes my island. So like I said, I always eyeball. So I'm just going to put in my rice, and then I'll just give it a stir. And I'm going to turn up the heat now so it's boiling, not simmering anymore. And then, yes, question?
Yes, question from TT Lyle. How many cups of rice per person would you recommend on average?
So, you know, we live in this day and age where everyone wants to be healthy and not eat carbs. So if you're one of those people, I would say like a cup of rice should feed like 4 people in general. A cup of uncooked rice, probably like a half a cup per person. But it really just depends on how hungry you are. All right, so our vegetables, I want to show you these in my hot pan. Our vegetables are nice and cooked down. Let's smell it. You guys smell it? It smells better now, right?
Yes, starting to smell better.
See, we have our vegetables. It kind of looks not so appetizing now, but don't worry. It'll be good. We're going to also at this point add in some Cajun seasoning. I have so many Cajun seasonings. Which Cajun seasoning? So I was looking up a recipe for Cajun seasoning, and most of them, like, they're all like secret recipes. So it'll be like pepper, spices, and that's like it. In general, Cajun seasoning is gonna have like chili, cayenne, oregano, and pepper. You can choose if you want one with salt or one without salt. I recommend using one without salt so that you can control the level of salt inside of your meal. But if you have a Cajun brand that you really like that has salt, just be careful when you're adding it in. I'm going to add about a tablespoon of it in to now. Which one shall I use? This one has salt, so I'm not going to use that one. But I'm going to use this one that TT Laya brought. Yes?
Yes, question from BP. What type of rice do you recommend? What goes well with an etouffee?
So when we are making etouffee or traditional Louisiana cooking, we're talking about just using a long grain white rice, which is like the regular rice that you see. I personally really like short grain rice because it has a chewier texture, especially short grain brown rice. If I'm just eating rice on a regular occasion, which is not very often, but short grain brown rice, it tastes like it has a toothsome feel to it. But long grain rice is perfectly fine for this application, and it's like pretty cheap. All right. So we are going to add in our seafood stock now. So we'll go ahead and add this in. You can find this pretty much in any store. It's going to be with your chicken broth. Some stores sell it refrigerated. That's probably going to be fresher and better, but this will do for today. So I'm gonna add in our seafood stock. And now we're gonna just let this cook on, if you have the time, the lower you cook it, the better it's actually going to be. The slow and low cooking is always a preferred method rather than just like super boiling something really hard. Where's my spoon? I want to just go ahead and give this a stir so everything is incorporated. And we're just gonna let this cook down. And I'm gonna cook it without a lid because we want it to get nice and thick, so we do want some of that to evaporate. If we put the lid on, the steam would just fall back down and it would be more liquidy than I want it. So we'll leave that to go by itself for now. Let's just clean up a little bit. Let's get out our shrimp. I want to talk about our shrimp. So here we have our shrimp. I was so excited in the grocery store today because these are actually wild Argentinian shrimp, which are actually closer related to lobster. So they're like the most tender, delicious shrimp you will ever have in your entire life. Like, if you don't like these, then I don't know if we could be friends. If you don't like shrimp, I don't know if we could be friends. But yeah, when I bought these frozen, and then to defrost them, I just ran them under cold water. And now I need to peel them, of course. And I told you I do everything in real life for you, so you're cooking along with me. I did kind of cheat today and I peeled some of these shrimp already. But what I have to do with these shrimp, and I hope you do this too at home, shrimp have their excrements in the back of them, which is not, who wants to eat that? That's pretty disgusting, right? So we do need to remove that from them. And the way we're gonna do that, the easiest way that I've found is just to take a little knife and then run your knife down the back of it. Now, warning, when you do this, you might not want to eat shrimp ever again. So it might be tempting to buy them already cleaned and shelled. But the quality of your shrimp, so I just have a little knife that has serrated edge right here. I'm just gonna run my knife down the back, and then there's like all this gross stuff that will just rub off right there. And then I like to keep my clean shrimp separated from my other shrimp so it doesn't get too confusing. So we'll put it over there. So yeah, it may be tempting to buy shrimp that are already cleaned and shelled, and it's so much easier, but you are gonna lack on quality, because if you think about it, someone has already put their hands all over it and they're tearing the flesh, and then it is refrozen, because unless you live like on the Gulf of Mexico and this is so disgusting, and you're getting fresh shrimp straight out of the water, all of the shrimp that you buy are not fresh. They've all been frozen, because shrimp are very perishable, right? So as soon as they come out of the water, they have to be frozen. So even at the grocery store, if you see shrimp like that say fresh, they're lying to you. They were just frozen and they were defrosted, and that's why they're in the ice now. So when you're buying shrimp, this one was really eating good. It's disgusting. So gross. When you're buying shrimp, it's actually better to buy frozen shrimp, because then you know exactly when they were defrosted, when you decided to defrost them. In the grocery store, you don't know when they defrosted them, and they're lying to you and saying that they're fresh. Also, you can, can you see this on the camera? It's like really,
Yes,
really gross.
you can see it all.
These Argentinian shrimp are really eating really well. Question?
Question from my DM. Do you wash the shrimp after removing?
My DM loves to ask this question about washing proteins. These shrimp, yes, I'm going to rinse them because you see all of this disgust. Sometimes shrimp are not as dirty as these, but I still, actually, yeah, shrimp I normally just give a little rinse if I've cleaned them at all. But yeah, when you're buying frozen shrimp, you want to look for shrimp that are IQF, which are individually quick frozen, rather than blocks of shrimp, because then you can just take out exactly how many you need and defrost exactly how many you need. You don't have to defrost the whole bag. This is 2 pounds of shrimp. Well, it was 2 pounds with the shells on. So when you buy the shrimp When you buy shrimp, it's kind of counterintuitive because the higher number you go of shrimp, the smaller shrimp that there are, or the smaller the shrimp become. So if you're buying shrimp, I think I told you guys to get 26 to 30. That means there's about 26 to 30 in a pound of shrimp. So if you're getting shrimp, those little tiny shrimp, I don't really like those in applications like this because it's shrimp etouffee. You really want to highlight and have a nice size shrimp rather than like a big, just like a big plate of little shrimp. This is like really, really gross. I used to have to do this at a restaurant. I worked at this restaurant in Venice Beach, and this used to be my least favorite task besides peeling boiled eggs. Yes, question.
Yes, question from BK Jojo. How long do you cook the veggies?
So we cook the veggies. When we first put them in the pan, we cook them for about 5 minutes so we can start building some flavor and caramelizing them up with the roux. And now we are letting them cook and simmer after we added the seafood stock in. And we're gonna let them simmer down until it gets nice and thick. The longer you're able to cook it, the more flavor that's going to develop. So if you have more time, I would suggest doing it longer than what we're gonna do here today. These shrimp?
They eat good.
Yeah, they were really, really full. And I'm gonna check my vegetables back here. I can hear it bubbling away. It's like a good little bubble. All right, just a couple more shrimp. If you are just joining us, we're making shrimp etouffee. Etouffee is a traditional New Orleans dish. It could be made with any kind of seafood. Crab and crawfish are actually the more popular versions, but today we are using shrimp just because it is more easily accessible to find shrimp, and it's cheaper than crab. And we are using frozen shrimp, which I always suggest to use when you're making recipes at home. And now you're watching me do this really struggling process of cleaning the shrimp, which is like, it's like oddly rewarding, like kind of like cleaning your ears, like, or cleaning the earphones. Do you guys clean your earphones on the inside with a Q-tip?
Yes.
Yeah, it makes me so excited and so disgusted at the same time. It's kind of like that. That's how I feel about these. All right, we're coming to the end. And yes, my DM, I'm going to rinse these off because they are really gross.
With cool water?
Cool water, yes. You wouldn't want to use hot water because the hot water is going to cook your shrimp, start cooking your shrimp. So we'll rinse these off. Now, if you've watched the show before, you see that I often dry my proteins before I cook them. In this case, we don't have to dry our proteins because we're just gonna put them inside of our stew. We're not gonna create a sear. We're actually basically just going to poach these inside of our stew. So it doesn't really matter if they're wet or dry at this point. But what I am going to do with these shrimp is actually season them before I add them in with some salt and pepper. You always want to season your food in layers so everything can have flavor. Where's my pepper? Oh, here it is. Don't look inside my messy cabinets. One day I'll organize them. All right, so we'll just season those up, and now I'm gonna have to wash my hand again. These are so beautiful. I'm very excited to eat. All right, now let's check our stew, our etouffee in the back. Let's give it a stir. Ooh, it's getting nice and thick. It actually is kind of stuck to the bottom of the pan. So that's why it's important to stir throughout the cooking process. So let me do this in a safe way so I don't drip all over my kitchen. As you can see, it is nice and thick and the color is right. I'm gonna taste it actually right now. And we're probably actually gonna add in some more of this seafood stock because I don't want it like glue. I want it like a thick sauce. Etouffee actually means to smother in French. All right, so let's taste this and see how it's going. Hot. Not bad. Pretty good. I'm surprising myself right now. I'm really hungry. I haven't eaten all day. Yeah, this is delicious. If you're making it at home, taste yours now. This is really good. So I'm going to actually add in some tomatoes to this as well. When I was developing this show, I did some research on the difference between Creole and Cajun. Yes, question.
Yes. Well, comment. Keith Price would like to let you know Dad is watching.
Oh, hello, Dad. Thanks for watching. Thanks for joining me. Actually, next week you're going to be on the show. Aren't you excited? I'll be cooking at home in California with my dad, and my sister will be the new TT on the computer. So I'm gonna drain these because they have a lot of water in them. So I'm gonna go ahead and drain out some of that excess liquid. And then I'm gonna add these tomatoes in as well. So the difference between Creole and Cajun, if you're wondering, is Cajun is more like back home cooking and Creole is like city cooking. So the main difference is in a lot of Creole dishes they have tomatoes, whereas in Cajun they won't have tomatoes, because back in the day when these cuisines were being developed, Cajun people or people that were Cajun, cooked Cajun, didn't have access to a lot of different ingredients, as opposed to people that lived in cities who had a lot more access to butter, which is why their roux normally use butter. Creole roux normally use butter rather than oil. And they had tomatoes and a lot of other products that the Cajun people did not have access to. So it's a little more, I don't want to say less, it's less fancy, I guess, but it doesn't make it any less good. It's, like I said, New Orleans has the best food in the whole entire world. If you haven't gone, you should go. Or you could just cook it in your own kitchen, just like we're doing today. So I'm just going to give this a stir, and I'm going to let this continue to cook. I want to add in just a little bit more Cajun seasoning. Just like you can add in the Cajun seasoning to your taste. And Cajun does not always, we always think of Cajun, not always, but a lot of people think of Cajun being spicy. Cajun does not always mean spicy. So what we can do at the end, if you do like spice, is add in some hot sauce or add in some red hot chili flakes, or just some cayenne pepper. But this dish is not supposed to be spicy, out of your world spicy. All right. Oh, let's check our rice back here. It's been bubbling away as I've been talking. How long has it been? About 10 minutes that it's been cooking?
Yeah, just about, a little longer.
All right, so the way that I test if my rice is done in this cooking method is I literally taste it. And I normally burn my mouth when I do this, so I'm just gonna leave this on the counter. Yeah, rice is done. Easy as that. To drain it, I'm just gonna use my strainer. Go ahead and drain it in the sink. And then I normally just leave it right on top, and by the time our etouffee is done, our rice will still be warm enough. I'll just turn that off in the back. Now, exciting stuff. We're gonna move on to dessert while our etouffee is bubbling back here. So again, I'm gonna use a heavy bottom pan. If you have a cast iron skillet, that's great. And I'm gonna put it on my fire and start melting some butter back here. I have a whole stick of butter. Delicious, right? We're making dessert. It's not healthy, so just deal with it. No, there's no way to make this healthy. We're just gonna melt that butter back in there. And once your butter has melted into the pan and it's coating your pan, you can add in a cup of brown sugar. We're essentially making a caramel. Let's clean up our area a little bit. And for this recipe, we're going to use bananas. We have our butter and sugar melting in the back. And we have some dark rum, the darkest rum you can find. I should have had Drew bring me some from the Bahamas. Cinnamon, I said you could use cinnamon, nutmeg, allspice, basically whatever you have around. Don't go to the store and just buy nutmeg for this recipe if you don't use it often. I normally always have cinnamon. And then nuts are completely optional. If you like the crunch, add the nuts. If you don't like nuts, don't put them in. Cooking is fluid. You're cooking for yourself, not for me, so make it taste good to you. I'm gonna just cut my bananas. I guess 3 is enough. I'm gonna rinse off my knife and then cut my bananas in half. You can honestly cut your bananas however you want. And for this recipe, it's good. I was reading, it's good to use less ripe bananas, but this is totally, it would be totally acceptable to use more ripe bananas. Just use the bananas that are about to go bad because you're covering them in sugar, so they're gonna taste great. So we'll just cut our bananas in half, or you could cut them in circles if you'd like to do that as well. So we'll just cut ours in half. Actually, I think I'm gonna cut mine into 4 pieces. So I'll just cut them in half twice, or lengthwise, and then also halfway. Now we have our bananas. I'm gonna get my nuts ready by chopping them just a little. Now, chopping nuts is one of those tasks that I really hate doing. It just is a lot of effort. So what I like to do is, not always using a giant Ziploc bag, but if I had a more size appropriate, I put some nuts in a bag, just like that. And then I take something heavy. Normally at my client's house, it's a meat masher, or meat tenderizer. Yes, question.
Johanna would like to let you know this roux is amazing.
Oh, good job. Johanna is at home cooking along. She said the roux is delicious. So I'm just gonna chop my nuts by banging them. This is so much more fun and so much more easy than chopping them with your knife. If you have a food processor, that's a really easy way to chop your nuts as well. I'm gonna stop saying that sentence because it's starting to sound funny. Alright, so we have our butter and our sugar back here melting together. I'm just gonna stir it around. Which spoon should I use? There we go. Stir it around, and it's gonna start to get nice and bubbly back here. I have like a mini stove, so the flame, only one flame is really good, so I only can cook one thing really well at one time. So this is going to take a little while to heat up this whole pan. Again, I'm using a heavy bottom pan for making this caramel because it's going to distribute the heat more evenly. It's going to be less likely that my caramel will burn if I'm using a heavy bottom pan. I'm going to stir my etouffee. It's looking delicious back here. Now we added in those tomatoes. Like I said, if you have more time, if you could cook this for like an hour, that would be amazing. The flavors are really going to develop inside of there. We're doing a quick version here. All right. Actually, I'm going to switch these burners to make it more exciting for us. I need to move. This pan gets hot. All right. And turn on this back one. All right. So we have our nuts, we have our bananas, and we have our rum. A lot of times Banana Foster calls for banana liqueur. But banana liqueur, I don't know why they sell banana liqueur. It's like this big, and what else are you going to use it for besides Banana Foster, unless you like banana flavored beverages?
No.
Weird.
Crickets.
Said no one ever. So it's not really something that you necessarily need to have. Just add more rum. Who doesn't want more rum? To the recipe instead of using that banana liqueur. It's not going to, like, your Banana Foster is not going to be ruined at all. Banana Foster actually originated in New Orleans as well. It was developed at this restaurant called Brennan's in 1951. New Orleans used to be the main place that bananas were imported to. It was like the first stop of bananas, so they had like a plethora of bananas around. So this recipe was developed at this place called Brennan's. And it's really exciting dessert because you can flambe it if you'd like. My little lighter ran out, so it'll be interesting to see how this works later, if it flambés at all. But flambeing is not necessary at all. You don't have to flambe it to make it. It's just if you want to, it looks cool. All right, so our sugar and butter is melting together. I'm gonna rinse off my whisk from my roux that I used earlier. And I'm gonna just stir it around. Now, when you're making a caramel, you need to be patient, which is not one of my virtues. I don't have any patience. But it's going to look like nothing for a little while. And then as the butter and the sugar incorporates together, it'll start to get to something. So you have to be patient. I'm going to bring this over. It's like such a pretty color, right? You see it? Yeah, there you go. And at this point, our roux is back there bubbling away, or not our roux, our etouffee is back there bubbling away. And we're almost ready to eat. It's been bubbling for about 15 minutes or so. All those flavors incorporating together. So I'm gonna add in my shrimp. Now, shrimp cookery. A lot of times people don't like shrimp because they're rubbery or hard. That's because you cooked them too long. So if you're making this, if say you wanted to make this ahead of time, I would highly suggest making this mixture back here first and letting, if say if you want to make a day or two ahead of time, making this, put it in your fridge, and then putting your shrimp in right when you're going to actually eat it to cook. Because you know seafood doesn't last well once it's cooked, and actually this will probably be really good if the flavors develop over day. You know, like lasagna is always better the next day. This is another one of those dishes that will be better the next day. But you definitely don't want to overcook your shrimp. So when I put my shrimp in, I don't want my etouffee to be super boiling, because really hot temperatures make your protein seize up really and like get tight and tough. So I want it to be more at a simmer, not a roaring boil when I put them in. So it's going to lightly poach our shrimp and be nice and tender. Hopefully is the goal. So let me turn this down in the back. Ooh, look at our caramel. It's getting, see, patience is a virtue. It's getting nice and caramely and delicious. I'm going to add in my shrimp back here after I turn down that heat. And these are going to take like literally like 2 seconds to cook. Okay, more than 2 seconds. But like 2 minutes. And how do you tell when shrimp are cooked? It's a little difficult to tell. They do turn a brighter pink color, but it's a little difficult to tell, but you will tell because they curve a little bit. But again, they won't take very long at all, so don't think you need to cook them forever. And remember, simmer, not a boil, because you don't want your shrimp to be tight. All right, caramel, looking amazing right here. Now we're gonna add in some rum. Oh, actually, no, we're gonna add in our bananas first. Gonna add in my bananas. Now, I asked you to get heavy cream, and the heavy cream is kind of to stabilize your caramel. So if you're gonna let this sit for a while, this is when you would add in your cream. But I'm not, I'm just gonna live life on the edge and add in my bananas and my nuts at the same time. Now, this is another thing that can burn. So once you get it to the color that you want, make sure that you're keeping a mindful eye on the heat. Add in my nuts that I've pounded.
You are tickled, aren't you?
I am so tickled. All right, so we have our nuts, our bananas, and our nice little caramel. We can toss it around a little bit. Now I'm gonna add in my alcohol. Alcohol is flammable, so be careful when you do this at home. I always err on the side of caution. I'm actually gonna pull this away from the heat. And I normally lower the heat and put it back on the flame. Now, this is one question. Oh, this is when you could light it on fire and it would be like beautiful and amazing. So you could do that a few ways. You can take a lighter and stick it in, or you can tip your pan and it'll light on fire. I'm not gonna light it on fire today because I don't have my match thing. I'm afraid of fire. Yes, question.
I'm just saying it's been 2 minutes for the shrimp.
Oh, for the shrimp. TT Lyle is keeping me honest on time. So we have our shrimp back here. You can't see them. Let me bring them closer. They've curled up a little bit, so that means they're done. So as soon as our bananas are done, we can plate up and eat. Very excited. You guys excited to eat?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, I'm just going to move my bananas around in this delicious caramely rum sauce that we've made. I'm also going to sprinkle in some cinnamon. There we go. A little or a lot, up to you. Cooking is fluid. Now, we've made this delicious pot of etouffee, but it doesn't look so beautiful, right? It's kind of a brown, weird color. So what do we need to do? We need to garnish it. Traditional garnishes are green onions and parsley. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut up some green onion, give them a rinse first. Now to cut my green onion, you can use the top or the bottom. Some recipes are like just use the top, just use the bottom. It's a green onion. Use as much or as little as you want. I'm just gonna turn my knife to the side and cut them on the bias, which just makes them a little prettier. I'm gonna cut off these tops. And then turn my knife, instead of cutting straight, I'm gonna cut to the side on a bias, just like this. And then I will sprinkle these on top of my etouffee at the end. You can also add parsley, like I said, if you I actually still have parsley from 2 weeks ago that's still fresh. Question
from Maureen O'Brien O'Reilly. Does setting things on fire change the taste?
Does setting things on fire change the taste of your food? No, it just looks cool. But we do want to evaporate some of that alcohol flavor from it, so that's why I'm letting it cook a little bit more after I added the alcohol in. But no, you will not get drunk eating these bananas either. All right, so our bananas are looking lovely. Look at this, so good. And we are ready to plate up our food. So, there's a few ways you can do this. You can put your rice right in the middle. You can spread your etouffee around and then put your rice on top, or the other way around. I'm gonna put my rice on the bottom. I'm like running out of spoons. That's as much rice as I need.
This is your plate, right?
Yeah. I'm not really a fan of rice. The rice is just kind of along for the ride. And then let's move our etouffee over here. Let's try to bring it closer so you can see it. You can see our nice big pot. The other nice thing about these cast iron enamel skillets is they look really pretty to serve. Like, you could totally put this on a dinner table if I had one. I live in New York, I don't have a dinner table, I just eat off of the couch every day. But if you're entertaining, you could just serve it straight like this and it would look gorgeous as well. Gonna grab, I guess I'm playing like how many spoons can I use today? Because I've used like 1,000. Now I'm just gonna pour or put my etouffee on top with all those beautiful vegetables that we spent so much time chopping up. But as you can see, this is a fairly simple dish and it creates a ton of flavor in a pretty short amount of time. There we go. And you can see it's not runny, it's not a soup, it's a stew. And then we'll just top it with these green peppers, or not green peppers, green onions. Let's move some of this stuff out of the way because not only do we have dinner today, we have dessert. So I'm just going to plate that up as well. I promised banana Foster sundae. You can't have a sundae without ice cream. So I have my ice cream that I left out when I got home from the store for like 20 minutes. Anyone done that? You come, you have, I was like, oh, I'll unpack later. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have ice cream. So yeah, don't do that. I'm gonna go ahead and scoop some of this ice cream in. Actually, we want to highlight, hopefully this doesn't break. I'm always scared that hot stuff is gonna break glass. That'll be exciting if it does.
Exciting.
Yeah, exciting. So I'm gonna put some of the sauce on the bottom. I think a well-made sundae is all about layering. You can't, who wants to just have ice cream at the end? You wanna have all those flavors incorporated all the time. You're like, I do.
I do.
All right, then we'll put some ice cream. This is really yellow ice cream. And then put on some of those bananas with that caramel. This, you saw how easy this was. This is like a really good dish to impress someone. If you have a hot date, like, oh, I made you dinner and dessert. Even little do they know that you just spent like 5 minutes caramelizing some bananas. And then we'll put some more ice cream on top. Finish that off with some more sauce. Looks so good. Now, I don't know, I'm kind of conflicted where to start, what to eat first. I feel like I should probably eat this first because it's gonna melt.
Yes.
So yes, thank you so much for joining us, because there's 3 of us, it's a party here, on Real Life Cooking this week. We made our shrimp etouffee, New Orleans style. We took a trip to New Orleans and we made our banana Foster sundae. Thank you so much for joining us. Next week I'll be in California cooking with my dad, so hopefully see you then. If you have any questions, comments, please drop them below. Let me know how you like. Let me know what you want to see cooked anytime soon. And yeah, thanks so much for joining. Enjoy your food. I'm about to eat this.